Iran's Hail Mary. Let's check it out. And welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. Nearly decimated by U.S. and Israeli forces, the terror regime that controls Iran has called for a Hail Mary, lashing out with most of what it has left, it seems, looking for enough chaos to stop the onslaught before the cancerous stain on this world is fully decapitated. The Iranian regime is turning the Persian Gulf into a hellscape. 2 tankers deep in the Gulf. We had it for you, breaking news yesterday at 7 o'clock. Hundreds of miles north and west of the Strait of Hormuz, 2 tankers blasted by Iranian suicide drone boats after several other tankers were hit earlier on Wednesday. You had missiles flying in from the north from Hezbollah. Fuel storage tanks in Oman also blown up by an Iranian drone in the video you see there. This is the nightmare scenario that a lot of people expected to happen. And this is also a reminder of why so many have not taken on Iran and kicked it down the road to this point, and also a reminder of why this operation is so very important. Terror regimes like Iran should have been destroyed decades ago. Trump is the only one willing to do it, saying we're not going to let these animals threaten the U.S. and the world any longer. But it ain't easy. And Trump is trying to focus on the good news.
They are pretty much at the end of the line. Doesn't mean we're going to end it immediately, but they've got no Navy, they've got no Air Force, they've got no anti-air traffic, anything. They have no systems of control. We're just riding free range over that country. The Straits are in great shape. We've knocked out all of their boats. They have some missiles, but not very many. I think we're in very good shape. We don't want to let it regrow. And ideally would like to see somebody in there that knows what they're doing. In other words, they can build a country.
They don't want to knock Iran down and then they pop back up, right? Makes sense. The CENTCOM update, more than 6,000 targets hit, more than 60 warships taken out, loads of mine layers as well. That is good news. But the Strait of Hormuz is not in great shape, as the president claimed. As we speak, oil and gas companies are working to ramp up production in other parts of the world that hold the other 80% of our oil and gas, because the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz could look like this for a while. Iran has drones. They have these suicide boats as well, and it won't take much to keep oil barges from passing through the Strait of Hormuz. They don't have to do a lot to keep this very unstable and to keep these shipping companies from saying, not a chance. So we have to move production around. You go to other places in the world, you start pumping more there, you make the Persian Gulf in the near term somewhat obsolete. That's got to be the plan, right? Because yesterday was a disaster. And this is a moment that will require a stiff spine from the White House, because, again, they're trying to hold on to the economy. They really want to hold on to oil prices. This is very, very important. Trump and the economy, there's a symbiosis there that's very, very important. That's what he does. He's a businessman. Gulf state leaders telling Reuters and reminding the world that if the president leaves Iran without fully decapitating the regime, it's like leaving an injured lion. The Wall Street Journal indicating the same, saying leaving the regime undefeated could motivate Tehran to develop nuclear weapons even more so and leave it in control of much of the world's energy flows. Iran controlling so much of the energy of the world as they have for the last 40 years. This has been the problem. And that puts the president in a tough spot, which could complicate his hopes of leaving Iran a strong economy, going in, blasting this regime, leaving them an economy so the people can rise up, can have a prosperous life with a better government, and be managed under a new Western-facing leader. That's the hope. His concern is that he might have to do this.
We can hit sections of Tehran and other places that, if you do it, it'll be almost impossible for them to rebuild their country. And we don't want that. But we can hit electric, we could take apart their electric capacity within 1 hour, and it would take them 25 years to rebuild it.
Not something that he wants to do. Again, this is why Iran has gotten to this point. Nobody wanted to do the dirty work of ending this terror regime over all of these years, as it consolidated more power, as it got into more control in the Middle East, as it morphed into a powerful heavily armed terror state in recent decades. Kick the can to the next president. Nobody wants to deal with this problem that everybody saw. Trump actually took the responsibility to not hand our next generation a world where they also have to tap dance around an Islamist regime of idiots. And what we've done the past 11 days would no doubt buy the world some time. And it's been tremendous to watch so much of the weapons of this regime be decimated and so many of the leaders of this regime be decimated. But again, at this point, we're still just mowing the lawn, like the Israelis said. We're just cutting them down. They're going to grow again, like anything else. If not destroyed completely, Iran's terror regime will return, and it'll be far uglier and angrier than it was before, with a total idiot at the top of it, assuming that the son of the Ayatollah is still alive, which is questionable at this point. But if he is, bad news. This is not something that you can start and not finish. All right, General David Petraeus, former CENTCOM commander and CIA director, joins us tonight to talk about all of this. And, sir, it's good to have you on the show. We appreciate it. I want to start with Iran clearly lashing out the last 24 hours or so, trying to create, I guess, enough chaos in the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz. They want $200 oil. They want to force the U.S. and Israel to back off. What is your assessment of how they're going about this and how successful they'll be at it?
Well, they do seem to have created a situation in which the shipping companies do not want to move their ships into harm's way if they can avoid it. Reportedly, about 7 ships have actually been hit in some fashion. The challenge is in a number of different areas. They have mines of different types, thousands of those actually, although a lot of the mine laying ships have been sunk already. Well over 60 ships now reportedly have been sunk. There are shorter range drones that could be problematic when you actually go through the strait. There are shorter range missiles that could be problematic. There are fast boats. There probably are still some mini subs left. Yeah. So this is a challenging situation. And I think one reason you're probably seeing the Gerald Ford, the USS Gerald Ford, the largest aircraft carrier in the world, and its task force making their way over to outside the Gulf instead of in the Eastern Mediterranean, is to posture the forces that are needed in case they do need to begin escorting ships through the Gulf.
Right, and that's if they're going to actually do that, that'd be a big moment, a big decision has to be made to do that, to go that far. We had a guest last night talking about the Strait of Hormuz, the Persian Gulf, saying that energy producers need to start upping their production in areas outside the Gulf to try and stabilize the oil markets, because that's the big vulnerability, right? The president is not going to want to see the economy tank, and I'm sure that's going to happen. Aside from that, though, as you look at this situation, you look at this area that's on the map here, is there anything that the United States can do in this moment to stabilize that region, the Gulf and the Strait? And how long do you think Iran can continue to keep this so chaotic?
Well, unfortunately, Iran only needs to do something every day, once or twice even, and there will be sufficient concern. Keep in mind, it's not about insurance for the boat. This is about losing people. And none of these shipping companies want to take that risk. And yes, there are some ways to get some of the oil out rather than through the Gulf. The Saudis, for example, put 5 million barrels that can go over to the Red Sea. The Emiratis have a way to push it down so that it comes out south of Oman. But these are small amounts out of the 20 million barrels a day that normally go out of the Gulf. That might account for 5.5 or 6 million barrels. So there's a very substantial deficit. The president's announcement of a release of a very, very substantial amount of the strategic reserve is going to be very helpful. The same with the release announced by all of the other countries. We're talking about 400 million barrels that will be released. But keep in mind, that's about 20 days supply out of the Gulf. And the president's release, the challenge there will be, can you actually ship it all? Can you tank it to where it needs to go? Sure. Because it's such an additional amount of oil that greater than what it is that we are currently pumping and shipping around the country. It's
going to be a big liability. We're moving towards an election in November. They're not going to want to see, $4 and $5 gas and such. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they handle this. It's what you said about the Gerald Ford moving into that region. We'll see where that goes. I want to get one more from you here before I let you go. U.S. intelligence report claiming that Iran's regime is not at risk of collapsing. What do you make of that? And can they continue to hold on as they're just being decimated by our forces?
Well, they are being decimated by our forces. Keep in mind that the achievement of our military objectives is really very substantial. The regime leaders, dozens killed. The air and missile defenses have been taken down. The missile launchers, the missile stockpiles, and the missile manufacturing factories and so forth being destroyed. Drones, still work to be done there in that area. They can be a bit more dispersed. The naval forces we've taken down. And then the regime forces in general. The problem is that these forces are largely dispersed, the individuals. It's about 1 million men with weapons at the end of the day, even after perhaps some thousands of them are killed. And they're still quite cohesive. You know, what everyone is watching is to see, are there cracks from within the regime forces as they see their country essentially destroyed around them. But also keep in mind that the new supreme leader, just like his father before him, is the kind of guy who believes that they win if he can shake his fist out of the rubble and the destruction around him and say that we survived. And that's the challenge that you have here.
Yeah, it's really, 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 really tricky. I think we can clearly see that, the complications of this, the risk involved as they try and stabilize a part of the world that just doesn't want to be stable. General Petraeus, we appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Good to be with you, Rob. Thanks.
All right, a couple terror attacks here in the U.S. today have many wondering if Iranian terror cells have been activated, or perhaps if the attack on Iran has flushed out more of the Islamists who should have never been let into this country to begin with. United States intercepting encrypted communications believed to have originated from Iran that may serve as an operational trigger for sleeper assets outside of Iran. Here was the president last night on that concern.
Have you been briefed about how many Iran sleeper cells there could be inside the U.S. right now?
I have been, and a lot of people came in through Biden with this stupid open border. But we know where most of them are. We've got our eye on all of them, I think. They came in through the open border policies of Sleepy Joe Biden, one of the worst president in the history of our country. And we've got our eyes on all of them.
So let's talk about today's shootings. The first at Old Dominion University, Virginia. An Islamist killing one, injuring two others before he was stabbed to death by a hero ROTC student. The killer went to an ROTC class, picked the wrong place for that fight. The other attack, Bloomfield, Michigan, north side of Detroit. Nice neighborhood. Another Islamist ramming his car into a synagogue there. We're still awaiting more information on the Michigan terror suspect, but earlier reports suggest that he drove from Dearborn, which is near Detroit. That is a Muslim stronghold, if there ever was one. The Old Dominion shooter has been identified as Mohammed Jallow, a naturalized citizen from Sierra Leone and a former Army National Guard soldier. Jallow was previously convicted of terrorism, providing material support to ISIS. He was released early from his 11-year prison sentence in December of 2024. And just a little more than a year later, he thanked the lenient American justice system by shooting 3 innocent people. Fortunately, both of these young men are dead. Jallow screaming out the standard Neanderthal Islamic war cry, Allahu Akbar, before opening fire. Mark Morgan, the former Customs and Border Chief, joins us now. Mark, good to see you again. Naturalized, then convicted of terrorism, early release from prison, and he's left here in the United States for another 15 months. Why does this happen?
Yeah, look, Rob, let's put this in context. So the FBI and the greater United States intelligence apparatus for a long time now have been saying that the threat that this country faces with respect to international terrorism organizations attacking America is the highest it's been since 9/11. It's been described as a rogues gallery of these terrorist organizations calling on individuals not outside the country, Rob, inside the country to attack America. And let's put even a little more context. Look, I don't want to be political, but facts matter. And under the Biden administration, but in 4 years, he let in between 10 to 14 million illegal aliens from 163 different countries. And you and I have talked about this. Many of these individuals we call special interest aliens. Why? Because they came from countries that we know sponsor, harbor, facilitate terrorism, and have been calling for death to America for decades. Including, wait for it, including individuals from Iran. So what I've been saying for a long time, and a lot of my colleagues, is it's not a matter of if or when a sleeper cell or a lone wolf that's inspired by these terrorist organizations in the United States. They're already here, Rob.
Yeah. And you take somebody with down and out, downtrodden life, pitiful life, and you show them Islam, and before you know it, you have a radical terrorist on your hand the moment they have a bad day. I want to show this, rather than blame the obvious culprit here, which is this radicalized religion. The media is working hard to blame the president because he's trying to end the Iranian terror regime. Take a listen to this.
Between Muslims in the West, Muslims and the people of the Jewish faith, in large part because of what's happening in Iran. And you have to wonder about the connectedness. You have to wonder about the ways in which this environment further radicalizes people. And you have to wonder fundamentally about the degree to which this White House, which has been caught completely flat-footed on a war of choice, really has the personnel in place and actually the interest in keeping Americans safe.
How dare you try to end a terror regime in Iran? You're going to make Muslims around the world angry, and then they're going to kill innocent people, and that's not their fault. It's your fault.
Yeah, two things. One, she said we got caught flat-footed. Well, I don't know about you, Rob, but I'm going to go with General Petraeus, who said we've already, to a certain degree, decimated Iran. Yeah. So, number one. Number two, the Iranian regime. This is a regime that themselves or through proxies have killed more American citizens than any other terrorism organization on the face of the planet. That's a fact. It's unconscionable what we're hearing now from the left.
It certainly is. Mark Morgan, good to see you again. Thank you so much.
You bet. Thanks, Rob.
Jimmy Kimmel had some words for me last night. Rick and Ed join me next.
I guess this didn't sit too well with one of the Schmitt heads on Newsmax.
All right, we're going to have fun with that. Plus, a little later in news from the left, the UK's history erasure continues.
Whenever news breaks.
A lot of destruction there. It was really the front lines in the battle.
And wherever it happens.
Humanitarian corridors opened up this morning.
We're trying to go rescue a 96-year-old lady that doesn't have anybody to take care of her.
They're using ingenuity. They refuse to give up.
It's incoming fire. Come on. Yeah, let's get down here.
Newsmax is there for you.
The human brain is truly incredible. It's a complex network of 100 billion neurons that create cognitive functions surpassing that of supercomputers. Our brain controls our thoughts, our emotions, and our movements. Prevagen contains apoaquarin, originally discovered in jellyfish, and is designed specifically for the brain to help keep it amazing, so that we can continue to live our best life. Prevagen, for your brain.
I'm Arthur Lee, inventor and CEO of LifeVac, but most importantly, I'm a dad first.
Over 10 years ago, I watched my dad design and build the first LifeVac in our garage. Now, that device has saved thousands of lives.
The LifeVac saved my life in 1-2 seconds.
It's a device that saved my son's life.
A choking accident can happen anywhere. Order your LifeVac now.
Don't wait another minute. A life might depend on it. Go to lifevac.net or call 877-543-3822.
Just in time for our country's big celebration, the Kids Guide to America's 250th birthday is here, and it's free. Give your kids this epic story of freedom, heroes, and fireworks. Get it at freeusagift.com. That's freeusagift.com.
Your tax refund is in, and at Blue Compass RV, it's going places. Shop 100-plus locations, over 15,000 new and used RVs. Lock in lower rates with new RVs from $98 a month. Shop tax refund specials at Blue Compass RV.
It is not, generally speaking, unruly.
The dehumanizing rhetoric of Adolf Hitler is once again alive and well.
This version of Biden is the best Biden ever.
what Trump is calling the Save America Act. This is his attempt to fix the midterm election. So I brought this up during the monologue the other night, and I guess this didn't sit too well with one of the Schmitt heads on Newsmax who would like to report me to the authorities.
What the FCC is supposed to regulate, ABC breaks that law every single night, and it's about time that they learned a lesson for that. That is not a comedy show, that is propaganda.
I think of it as a little of both. Oh, they're such tattletales. Such little Karen. They're so worried about cancel culture until I come on and then they're like, call the FCC. He's breaking the law. How does this not embarrass them?
Jimmy's a little upset with me. I think I hit a nerve again. We've been through this a couple of times already. It wasn't hard to do on this one. Earlier this week, Jimmy Kimmel was ranting, as he always does every night, as his entire monologue is every night, about, as usual, nonstop about Trump. And this time about the SAVE Act and how it's all some kind of a power grab by Republicans and Trump, despite the fact that 80% of the people in this country want us to have elections the way the rest of the first world does, that are actually secure, with ID, with citizens voting, things like that. Now, Kimmel likes to pretend that his show is not Democrat propaganda, but he obviously knows that it is. And he also knows that federally regulated broadcast networks like CBS, ABC, NBC are not allowed to be what his show is. These networks are not, ABC is not allowed to be what it is, and his show is not allowed to be what it is. Pure propaganda in a two-party system for one of the parties. It's not allowed to be that. He does it regardless. And here, just to show you, was the clip that set me off earlier this week that started all this.
Trump wants to make it as difficult for Democrats to vote as he possibly can under the guise of stopping voter fraud, even though there is no meaningful voter fraud.
So, yeah, it was he rattled off a whole bunch of anti-Trump. The entire monologue was all negative towards Trump and how much he hates him and how ridiculous he is. Every night, this man propagandizes his audience to vote the way that he wants them to. This is all ABC seems to do, from mornings with Good Morning America, run by George Stephanopoulos, to midday with The View, you know what that is, to nights with Jimmy Kimmel. ABC is brainwashing the American people. We continue to call it out because it is so brazen. And when Jimmy gets called out, he really likes to lash out because it hits a nerve with him. I woke up to this morning, all these liberal media headlines talking trash. Jimmy Kimmel goes nuclear on Newsmax host for trying to get him fired. Jimmy Kimmel rips Newsmax, tattletales demanding FCC investigation into him. It was all over the place. The truth is, as you see video here of The Man Show, that Jimmy Kimmel actually used to be funny. I used to like Jimmy Kimmel. He was a legitimate comedian for a long time. He also used to be an unapologetic man. He is no longer that. Now he mostly just cries and holds a nightly therapy session for Trump-deranged liberals. Somebody clipped his cojones. I don't know who it was, either his wife or Hollywood. I don't know who did it, but at some point we lost Jimmy Kimmel. It didn't happen to his buddy Adam Carolla, though, I can tell you that. There is nothing also mainstream about Jimmy Kimmel any longer, except that he's still just barely on ABC. How does he have that job that he is so viciously corrupted? If Johnny Carson was still alive, he'd call Kimmel a fraud for what he has done to the craft that Carson created. Once ABC does rip him from that seat, he'll be another Don Lemon. He'll just be screaming his deranged BS from a corner of his house. That's who he is now. He's not a mainstream comedian. Why is he on a mainstream network? That's a great question. But for now, he just mocks Newsmax and pretends to be an important piece of the ABC dynasty and not the pricey liability that he is, propped up by toxic lefties in ABC's C-suite.
This channel, he's on Newsmax. I don't know if you see, they're literally on a payment plan right now. They owe $67 million for spreading Trump's election lies. They paid $20 million 2 months ago for their lies. They have to pay another $20 million in January of next year. But we're propaganda. Newsmax is to the Trump administration what the Fearless Flyer is to Trader Joe's.
Are we a conservative network? Yeah. But there's a difference. We're on cable. You have to pay to get us. ABC is injected into every single house in this country with a television. And that's where the FCC regulations come in, Jimmy. I know you're not the smartest guy in the world, but I think you should be able to see that. And that's where the problem comes. If Jimmy wanted to go be Joy Reid, go sit on MSNBC or go do a podcast, I couldn't care less. But you're not going to do this on ABC and not have me calling it out every single time I see it. And by the way, thanks for the free publicity to your modest audience that would be so much bigger if you were still actually a comedian. A reminder, your buddy George Stephanopoulos, Jimmy, who effectively runs ABC News now, just cost your company a pricey lawsuit as well for his sycophantism going the other way. At the end of the day, Jimmy knows I have a point. Imagine if NBC or CBS suddenly had Caroline Levitt hosting the morning show and controlling the news product. Then at 11 a.m., you had 5 different conservative Fox and Newsmax women all hosting a gossipy political show. And then at 11 p.m., you had Greg Gutfeld come on for The Late Show that did nothing but slam the left. Think how Jimmy would respond to that on CBS or NBC. He'd be visibly weeping yet again on television like he always does, calling it fascism and saying the nation and democracy were being destroyed. And yet, that is exactly what has happened to ABC. That's exactly what they do. Ed Henry, Rick Leventhal, join me now. Good to see you guys. Ed, just want to start with you and your reaction because me and Jimmy are going to have it out again, which I actually love it because I think it's fun, but he does not like me.
Yeah, I mean, you're fired up, man. I love it. Yeah, you're bringing the heat, which is what you should do. You know, other people shrink. Rob Schmitt comes and he punches back harder. You're a counterpuncher like the president, and that's why we love you, and that's why the audience does. And the bigger point here is exactly what you made. You want to go have your podcast, you want to sell it like Don Lemon does, and he can't sell it because nobody's buying his BS? No. Jimmy wants to be on one of the big 3 networks where he could jam this BS right down your throat, and people sort of have to listen to it because it's not paid for. It's just beamed out. Right. And that's why the FCC regulates it. You nailed it. And on your other point, it is propaganda, to use your word. On the Big Take tonight, 5 p.m. Eastern, we had a clip from a local news folk, a station out west, that showed that a Mexican illegal just got arrested for voting in the 2022 and 2024 elections. And the clip you played had Jimmy Kimmel saying Trump and Rob Schmitt and everyone's lying about voter fraud. It doesn't exist. They always tell us this. Sure. And then we find example of a Mexican illegal voting in not 1 but 2 elections. And now the guy's in jail.
And more broadly, this is something, if 85 or 90% of the people in the country want something, why are they screaming it's Jim Crow 2.0? Why are they making such a big deal about it? That's the more broad point I want to put across. And Rick, just to illustrate to people, I explained what it would be like if Caroline Levitt and the girls from, the Fox girls, and you had Gutfeld in primetime. I mean, that's how ridiculous ABC is right now. But because they've pulled us this way so slowly, starting with Stephanopoulos, and then they warped The View, and then they brought in Kimmel. They do it inches and inches at a time. They pull the country to the left, to the left, to the left. Now, if the FCC tries to do something about this, remember Kimmel screaming that it was fascist to try and have him fired? But that is really how ridiculous this network is.
But it's really all big 3. All the big 3 networks are that liberal, Rob, and they're all spewing the same nonsense and all coming down so hard on the president and the administration, even though they're getting stuff done like no president has in recent memory. I'm just mad, Rob, that I had to watch Jimmy Kimmel's monologue to prepare for this program because it was painful. Yeah. Okay, the guy is he's ridiculous, and for him to criticize the administration for trying to make elections respectable again, the SAVE Act is only doing, as you mentioned, what almost every other nation in the world that has a brain is doing. You require an ID to vote. And to suggest that women or poor people or any minority can't get an ID to vote is so disrespectful and so false, because you need an ID for almost everything these days, and everyone has one. So let's just get past the nonsense and get that bill passed. But congratulations for all the airtime you're getting on ABC.
Right. And I said it to my friend Adam, who lives in L.A., and, he doesn't watch Kimmel's show, but he watched the full monologue because I didn't tell him where it was in there. I just said, Kimmel hit me again. And he watched the whole thing, and he messaged me later. He was like, is this what he does every night? Does he just talk about Trump for the whole show? And I was like, yeah, dude, it's not the Tonight Show anymore. It's not late night comedy anymore. This is all just, again, federally regulated on television. This is injected propaganda right into your living room.
He made a joke about Epstein. You're joking about Epstein? Like, what? Dude, come on.
The whole show is politics.
Think about it.
Yeah, I got no more time.
Sinatra used to be on Johnny Carson, right? Now it's Jimmy Kimmel talking about random stuff. It's unreal.
And all just political guests too, just talking trash. It's such a bad show. I think a lot of people would be surprised if they actually watch it again, what it's turned into. Ed and Rick, good to see you guys. Thanks so much. All right, Senate Majority Leader John Thune has an agenda, and it appears it is not ours. Up next.
I can't guarantee an outcome on this legislation, but I can guarantee that we are going to put Democrats on the record.
I lost 110 pounds. You couldn't tell at all because of my excess skin. Sono Bello changed that in one visit.
Introducing the new Lift EX, the just one visit, total body transformation everyone is talking about.
I am super happy with my results.
I decided to give Sono Bello a try. Look at me, I have a silhouette. You can see my waist.
Lift EX is Sono Bello's breakthrough 360-degree body lift alternative. Our body contouring experts sculpt, tighten, and lift your stomach, waist, thighs, and backside, all in just one visit with less downtime.
Sono Bello targeted the areas diet exercise could not do. I found me again.
Sono Bello has over 50,000 five-star reviews, and Lift EX is exclusively available at Sono Bello, America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist. Book your free, personalized consultation today. Easy monthly plans make your best body more affordable than ever.
This year is my year thanks to Sono Bello.
Call Sono Bello for your free consultation today.
What if your GLP-1 for weight loss was as easy to take as a mint? Small, discreet, and easy. Think about that. No needles. This is compounded tirzepatide, a mint-flavored tablet designed to fit into your daily routine. You simply let it dissolve under your tongue. No mixing, filling, or storing your own syringes. Tirzepatide helps curb appetite and supports healthier eating by reducing cravings, including for sweets and carbs. And when your appetite feels under control, it can make it easier to eat less and move intentionally towards your weight loss goals. If weight loss has been on your mind, this may be the needle-free option you've been looking for. A simple daily tablet, as easy to take as a mint. Getting started is fast and surprisingly accessible. Just complete a quick online physician consultation. Here's how.
Save $50 with promo code SLIM at noneedles.com/slim. That's promo code SLIM at noneedles.com/slim.
What can $34 get you these days? It could send you overseas, drop you in your ancestral village, and give you a taste of your heritage passed down through the generations. It can open a whole new world of faraway places and fascinating people that make you who you are today. That's a big adventure for a small price.
Your Florida life is calling, and we have the answer. Valencia in Florida by GL Homes. Premium 55-plus living in 5 prime Florida locations. Gorgeous new homes from the mid-300s to $2.5 million. World-class resort-style living 24/7. Huge clubhouses, on-site dining, pickleball, and more. Effortless, low-maintenance living. Valencia, your Florida life is calling. Experience more at valenciaflorida.com.
Millions of Americans rely on a statin to reduce cholesterol, but statins can deplete CoQ10 levels. I recommend Cunol CoQ10 with 3 times better absorption and the #1 cardiologist recommended form. It helps replenish what statins deplete. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Next week, I will be bringing the Save America Act to the floor, and we will be having a full and robust debate. We're expecting continued, full-throated opposition to voter ID and the Save America Act from Senate Democrats, as well as more of the unforgivable rhetoric that Democrats have already been engaging in. I can't guarantee an outcome on this legislation, but I can guarantee that we are going to put Democrats on the record.
So here's what we're trying to figure out tonight. What exactly is John Thune up to with the SAVE Act? Because something doesn't feel right. The Majority Leader vowing to bring the SAVE Act, voting ID, all of that, to a vote next week in the Senate, but as it stands, it is destined to fail. And it appears maybe that Thune doesn't seem to care much about that. He says he won't nuke the filibuster, which would allow for a simple majority vote on something so important against something that 80-something% of Americans want. Thune also refusing to trigger the talking filibuster to force Democrats to speak continuously in perpetuity forever to block the bill. And then once they stop, the Senate could move forward and pass it with a simple majority. He's not even going to allow that to happen again for something that 80-something% of Americans want, just because Chuck Schumer keeps screaming Jim Crow 2.0. John Thune arguing there aren't enough Republican votes to get it done. To help explain why Thune is fighting a law that 80% of Americans and the president want passed are Alex Marlow, editor-in-chief of Breitbart, Matt Schlapp, CPAC chairman. Good to see you guys. Alex, what exactly is John Thune doing here? I don't know enough about the Senate and procedure to understand what he's trying to do here. What do you think?
Yeah, well, the first thing that he should do is, step one, move towards that talking filibuster, which would expose which Republicans oppose doing what's necessary to pass this vital bill, and also the Democrats as well. But what he's doing is, to quote Bradley Jay, who's my top Washington editor, what he's doing is he's acting like a thermometer instead of as a thermostat. Like, he needs to start putting pressure on people, doing what's necessary to make sure this thing goes through by any means necessary, because this really is what could save our country. And that's why it's called the Save America Act. That was its original branding. But instead what he's doing is he's just sort of taking the temperature of all the various Republicans who are there, who have objections to this, but they're not great. Some of it's electoral concern. Some of it is they want, the states to be able to have more autonomy over the voting rules. But what that's done, that's allowed for states like my state of California to be completely insane, where illegal aliens vote and they have 2 weeks to cheat out here. We don't get results for 2 weeks after elections take place. Completely ridiculous. Trump is correct to save it and to try to save it. And Trump's added some common sense stuff about transgender for everyone, which I think everyone should like. It's all good stuff. And Thune is not doing anything to help.
Matt, what's your assessment of it? I mean, do you trust John Thune? Is it as simple as that? Is he just scared to, maybe push a little too hard on something that's as controversial as this?
Yeah, I mean, basically the leader in the Senate for a long period of time represents the Republican conference in the Senate. And this will not be a shock to you that Republicans in the Senate don't want to do much. They want to ask some tough questions at hearings, but they keep talking about the institution of the Senate. I would like to remind them that literally civilization is cracking. The Constitution basically doesn't exist in half the country and in the Washington, D.C. and Virginia where I live. And while all this is going on, they're having these genteel conversations about the rights of the minority. And all Mike Lee and others are saying is, if you're going to do a filibuster, do it the old-fashioned way. Drink a lot of coffee, stay on your feet, and keep 40 of your guys together, 41 of your guys together, for as long as you can, and wear the other side out. Instead, because they don't want to do anything, they're saying to the other guys, all you do is have to tell us that you had the intent of doing a filibuster, and we say, okay, uncle, you win. We don't get the SAVE Act, and that's what's going on.
So disappointing. It really is. And it's just another disappointment in the Senate, as Alex said, and as Matt said too. Good to see you guys. I got to leave it there, but we appreciate it. Thanks, guys. The Islamification of New York. The mayor projecting his religious dominance every chance he gets in every video he takes. Where are all the separation of church and state liberals? Next.
You know Rob Finnerty. He's smart, bold, and stands strong for your values. Rob is fighting for you. Watch Finnerty weeknights only on Newsmax.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, owner of the company that sells an incredible nutritional supplement called Immuno 150. I'm celebrating my 92nd birthday in excellent health and condition because I've been consuming 70 minerals and 80 other nutrients found in Immuno 150. I don't have arthritis, diabetes, heart problems, dementia, or anything else. My blood pressure average is 119/72. My PSA is 0.00. I can still run, jump, and climb a ladder, dance for hours, or do anything else I want to do. Now, if you want to live a ripe old age and still have all of your marbles and muscles, you should try Immuno 150. Regardless of your age, chances are you're not in excellent health because you lack many minerals in your diet. Now, don't hesitate any longer. Try Immuno 150 so you can surprise your doctor the next time you get a physical. This incredible food supplement may be the best supplement in the world. Thank you and God bless.
So Dale, you really need to get that colon cancer screening.
Dad, it's been forever. I need to be in there.
Wrap it up.
Come on, Dad. It's taking forever.
How much longer?
It's been an hour. Are you done yet?
Dale, don't worry. We can do it with just a blood test. Shield.
Okay, let's do it.
Shield is for people 45 plus at average risk, not high risk for colon cancer. Ask your doctor about FDA-approved Shield from the company trusted in blood tests for cancer for over a decade.
Hello, this is WWE Hall of Fame wrestler Mick Foley. Across this great country, there are thousands of veterans with no place to call home. They deserve better.
Welcome to my new home.
The Tunnel to Towers Foundation is committed to eradicating veteran homelessness by providing housing and critical services.
Couldn't ask for anything more.
Please help by donating $11 a month at T2T.org. The Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Let us do good.
Like a relentless weed, moderate to severe Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis symptoms can keep coming back.
Break away to what's possible with Tremfya.
The only IL-23 blocker for Crohn's and UC to offer self-administration from the start.
With symptom relief as early as 4 weeks, remission at 12 weeks, 1 year, and even 2 years.
Some had visible healing of their intestinal lining. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Healing is possible with Tremfya.
Backed by over 15 years of clinical research. Ask your doctor about Tremfya today.
This is keratin debris, where nail fungus grows. Nonix Nail Gel cleans out fungus by removing keratin debris. Using Nonix, 90% of nails improve. Get clinically proven results. So effective, it's money-back guaranteed.
The reason that I love Ramadan so much is for everything else that it means, for the time of reflection, the time of focus, and really a time where you understand yourself as part of something larger. Having you all here today, even just sitting on the floor, the transformation of a space that I've only ever known in one way, frankly, it is a gift, and it's a real joy.
It's really obnoxious is what it actually is. Here in New York, our communist Islamist mayor hosting an iftar at City Hall this week, the meal that breaks the fast during Ramadan. Video shows Mamdani and guests praying on carpets, eating on the floor. Islam likes to project its dominance in the West. We see this all over the West, and we've seen so many different videos. Every time he does something, he's got to incorporate his religion into it. They like to stop traffic to pray. They want to force you to capitulate to them. I'm going to pray in the middle of the street. You're going to sit there and wait for me. They like to send out their little call of prayer however many times a day. They're playing that now in some cities in the U.S. Force you to listen to this. We're going to pray. You need to know about it. That's exactly what Zoran is doing here. And it's very, very, very obnoxious. It's very toxic, too, in a city that survived an Islamist attack just 25 years ago. It all comes after Mamdani hosted Mahmoud Khalil and his family at Gracie Mansion for dinner recently as well. A total Hamas sympathizer, a terror sympathizer in the mayor's mansion. For this one, they actually used the table. I guess we give them points for that. Another example from independent reporter Susan Edelman, the placement of Muslim prayer rugs in front of the FDNY's memorial plaque for firefighters killed on 9/11 has angered members who contend the Ramadan observance disrespected our fallen heroes. They're putting Islamic prayer mats right in front of the FDNY memorial for the hundreds of firefighters that rushed into the towers on 9/11 and were killed as Islamists attacked our city. Brigitte Gabriel is a New York Times bestselling author, and she joins us now. I saw your reaction to this on X today. I thought it was excellent. Give me your perspective, Brigitte.
Well, this is insulting, and you should see how this is playing on the Muslim street worldwide in Arabic media. What Mamdani is doing, basically, he's telling the Muslim world, we are continuing and building on what Osama bin Laden has done. He may have started it, but we are continuing carrying the torch to establish Islam as a dominant religion in the United States, starting with New York, the exact same city that Osama bin Laden attacked. And notice how he mentioned in his speech, he said that watching the transformation in a place that I've accustomed to be something else. So he is bragging about the transformation of the United States, of New York, of the exact same place that Osama bin Laden attacked. And he is very proud. This is pure Islamic marketing on the world stage.
Yeah, and projecting the dominance. And you know how he gets away with it? It's with that big smile that he always puts on. He looks so disarming with that big smile. That's not real. He's an actor. He's a snake. He's an Islamist. He's a communist. He hates this country. He viscerally hates this country. You can tell by the way he runs this city. You can tell by his rhetoric. And if you watched him before he became mayor and before he ran for mayor, he had a scowl, an evil, America-hating, New York-hating scowl. Everywhere he went, the places he went, where he campaigned, how he talked, everything shifted when he suddenly realized he wanted to run New York. And he had to do that. And by the way, Bridget, where are all of the separation of church and state liberals in this city? Imagine if a Christian mayor started talking about Jesus all the time and putting Jesus stuff everywhere and turned the rooms of the mayor's mansion, it looked like a church. Imagine what they would say.
They would lose their mind.
They
would lose their mind. And you know what? The Jewish community in New York would be the first one to lose their mind. They are the ones who actually started and wanted to make sure there's no prayers in the schools, there's no prayers, there's no nativity scenes. Where are they now speaking? Where are they?
They're the ones that elected him.
That's right, exactly. Where are the 4 million Jewish people in New York rising in contempt for this behavior? This is unacceptable. It's disrespectful. And this is exactly why we need to resist this stuff. This is exactly why the American public needs to throw political correctness in the garbage and start calling a spade a spade. America is a Christian nation with a majority Christian population, was founded on Judeo-Christian values and principles.
And Islam is not that.
Islam is not that, and we need to stand up for our Constitution and our values.
Yeah, well said. Bridget, good to see you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Pretty wild claim from Joy Reid coming up next in News from the Left.
If there is a real Wakanda, it's the Democratic Republic of Congo. It's just completely exploited because of Europe and the West.
What's gold is new again. Pardon the pun. But considering gold has been used as currency since around 550 BC, it has been on fire the past year. I'm here with Daniel Boston, the founder of Preserve Gold. Why is gold so stable and such a good investment for many people?
Take the central bank, for example, the Federal Reserve. They print money out of thin air, and then they take that printed money to go buy hard assets like gold to protect themselves against the very risks that they're creating. So I always tell people, don't do what the big players are telling you to do. Do what they're doing themselves.
Yeah, watch what they're doing.
That's correct.
Okay. If people are interested in investing with Preserve Gold, how do they get started?
Text Newsmax to 50505 to get your free information and up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualified purchase. That's right. Text Newsmax to 50505.
All right. No way you can miss it.
Mike Hammond here, founder of Signal Relief. Meet Dr. Beth Dupree, breast cancer surgeon for over 35 years.
In my surgical career, I have treated thousands of patients, and finding effective pain relief has always been a priority. Believe me, I was skeptical, but Signal Relief caught my attention because it actually works. Clinical trials show over 85% of participants felt relief within 72 hours, with nearly half noticing a significant difference in just 15 minutes. Just place it near or above wherever you have the pain, whether it's your back, your shoulder, your neck, or your knee. Signal Relief Patch brings proven relief. I recommend it to my patients, family, and friends, and I get to witness and experience their pain relief firsthand, and that brings a smile to my face.
Join the hundreds of thousands who have experienced relief with the Signal Relief Patch, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. Trust Dr. Dupree and me. The patch works.
These days, supporting the right causes matters more than ever. That's why I chose Patriot Mobile. They're not just a great mobile service provider, they're all about giving back. Every bill helps support causes we believe in: family, faith, and freedom. You get great nationwide coverage on all three main networks. Even better, you're doing it with an American company that stands up for us. It's time to make the switch, y'all. Let's support a wireless company that's got our back. Go to patriotmobile.com and make the switch today.
When my mother heard about Pure Talk's latest offer, she said, Michael, that's a third of what I'm paying my current provider. How's that even possible? I said, Ma, your current provider spent $12 billion last year on advertising and promotion. Pure Talk hired me to make a few commercials on my iPhone. That's why you can get unlimited talk and text with plenty of data on a crazy fast 5G network for just $25 a month. You're welcome. Pure Talk. Everything you need. Nothing you don't.
Welcome back. Time now for news from the left. Joy Reid says the white man is the reason that Africa isn't utopia. Take a listen.
If there is a real Wakanda, it's the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Yeah.
It has every mineral in the greatest abundance on the entire planet. It should be the richest nation on earth.
Amazing.
And instead, it's just completely exploited because of Europe and the West.
Yeah.
And these companies like Apple and all of these oligarchs around the world, they just view it as a place to plunder.
Has a point about plundering African resources, but a lot could be said about the evidence that points to the fact that nowhere in Africa would have created that kind of prominence. By the way, here's a look at Wakanda, what it looked like in the film Black Panther, a technologically advanced nation in Eastern Africa, a progressive society. I think it's quite dangerous to blame the white man for why this doesn't exist in the nation of Africa. It's also a cope. It's irresponsible. It's also racist. Next up, the UK erasing more of its history, ejecting hereditary nobles from Parliament after 700 years of British political tradition. On Tuesday night, members of the upper chamber dropped objections to legislation passed by the House of Commons, ousting dozens of dukes, earls, and viscounts who inherited seats in Parliament along with their aristocratic titles. They've been doing this for 700 years. One British politician saying the change puts an end to an archaic and undemocratic principle. These are the same people that just replaced iconic British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, the hero of the Second World War, on the €5 banknote, and replacing that with wildlife so that they can erase more of the history and culture of that nation. I'm sure they'll try to replace those earls and dukes with, I guess, some Islamic migrants. I don't know. Who gets the position? I have no idea. They'll figure it out. And finally, Gavin Newsom been trying to shed his handsome, rich privilege lately, pretending to be a bad student from a rough neighborhood who had a tough childhood to try and win over the Marxist left that hates privileged white people. He has a problem. He's in a party that hates white people with money, that white people that do well. Trump hammering Newsom in a recent interview, saying perhaps the most self-destructive interview I've ever seen. In one fell swoop, he took himself out. While we all want to be politically correct, having a mental disorder is not a positive campaign event. Also, this was a politically suicidal act. The only thing he didn't say is he is losing his looks, but nobody wants to say that about oneself. He is no longer a viable presidential candidate. So Trump going the other way on it. Newsom posting on X that he spoke about his dyslexia and again playing the victim, saying, I know that's hard for a brain-dead moron who bombs children and protects pedophiles to understand. But again, at the end of the day, what is Gavin Newsom really doing? He's trying to shake off exactly what he is because he has to hate himself. The only way that he can get more power in this country is if he basically contends to his party, I hate myself because of what I am. I can't just be a successful white man in this country because we're not allowed anymore. So now I had a tough childhood and I'm dyslexic and I'm a victim just like you. I have to be a victim. Because in the Democrat Party, that's the only thing they respect anymore. That's the card you got to play. How pathetic is that? With Greta, it was never about climate change. Up next.
Closed captioning brought to you by Magna Life Relaxing Leg Cream PM for a good night's sleep.
The discomfort in your legs at night is real. Here's what real customers have to say about Magna Life Relaxing Leg Cream. It's a lifesaver if you have restless legs.
Available at your local retailer.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, owner of the company that sells an incredible nutritional supplement called Amino 150. I'm celebrating my 92nd birthday in excellent health and condition because I've been consuming 70 minerals and 80 other nutrients found in Amino 150. I don't have arthritis, diabetes, heart problems, dementia, or anything else. My blood pressure average is 119/72. My PSA is 0.00. I can still run, jump, and climb a ladder, dance for hours, or do anything else I want to do. Now, if you want to live a ripe old age and still have all of your marbles and muscles, you should try Amino 150. Regardless of your age, chances are you're not in excellent health because you lack many minerals in your diet. Now, don't hesitate any longer. Try Amino 150 so you can surprise your doctor the next time you get a physical. This incredible food supplement may be the best supplement in the world. Thank you and God bless.
To a hacker, your tax return isn't just paperwork, it's a gold mine. Your social security number and bank data are their biggest payday of the year. Old antivirus software can't keep up. You need PCmatic. Our default deny technology blocks every single threat that hasn't been pre-approved. If we don't know it, we block it. Secure your return right now. Buy PCmatic antivirus and we will give you PCmatic VPN for free. American-made security for homes, businesses, and government agencies. Visit PCmatic.com.
Make your tax refund go places at Blue Compass RV. Lock in lower rates now. New RVs from $98 a month. Every RV includes a VIP membership to RV Complete. Over $5,000 in value. Shop tax refund specials at Blue Compass RV.
So, here is a before of my stomach before Sonobello, and this is after.
This year, don't just lose weight, lose stubborn fat and sagging extra skin permanently at Sonobello.
I had some loose, wiggly skin, and it is no longer there thanks to Sonobello.
Our expert surgeons use micro laser technology to safely target and remove your diet-resistant fat and tighten loose skin permanently.
I wanted the results of the tummy tuck, but not the downtime. I had a 10 out of 10 experience.
We've helped over 300,000 people transform, and we're proud to be America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist.
In just one visit, Sonobello got rid of my love handles and my belly fat.
You want that flat stomach? You go get that flat stomach. Call Sonobello. Get in there for your free consultation. Do this for you.
Schedule your free, no-obligation consultation. Our flexible payment options make it easy to get started today.
Pump up the volume.
Go ahead. Crank the volume. We got you. USPS has increased daily package processing capacity by 46% in the past 5 years. And with USPS Ground Advantage, your packages stay in our secure network, dock to door, nationwide. For full visibility, near real-time tracking, affordable pricing, for peace of mind. USPS Ground Advantage.
The grind catches up with everyone, even me. That's why I trust Cunol Ultra High Absorption Turmeric to support my joint health. It's the #1 doctor-recommended form of turmeric that helps you keep doing the things you love at every age. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Finally tonight, we once believed that Greta Thunberg was all about climate change, right? But she's just a little Euro-communist after all. Now she's furious that Iran's murderous regime that just killed 30-something thousand people is under attack. And she's also very concerned about the communist killers in Cuba as well.
As the Trump administration is waging illegitimate wars across the world, killing countless of people, it is also strangling the Cuban people, deliberately, methodically, and openly. The pedophile Trump himself bragged about it, saying, "There's an embargo, there is no oil, there's no money, there's no anything." He said it like it was something to be proud of.
I've been to Cuba, you little idiot. Nice haircut, by the way. The people are begging to be freed from that regime, just like they are in Iran. We'll see you tomorrow.
Information. Truth. Is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.